We are the Real Bravado Network, and we address Black relationships from an image perspective. Image impacts and influences your life and life experiences. It also determines how you are treated and influence how people interact with you. Image is the reputation that you are known for, which includes your behaviors, your character, and your appearance. There's nothing more damaged than the image of the Black man in America. The Real Bravado Network's next phase of development with our live stream, Have the Conversation, will focus on his image. The Real Bravado Network will be asking, how can a Black man be a leader of his community and home when the vast majority of Black men have never been led? Leadership is taught and a skill that needs coaching, development, and refinement. Over the next few months, we will complete a forensic examination of his image. Please join the Real Bravado Network on YouTube, but we dare to be the bold, not silent.
I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need you to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play, I just win every day, I get it in. I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need you to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play, I just win every day, I get it in. I'm a king, and I will never knew. Plotting for my phone, you getting hanged for treason. I don't aim to please, do anything I feel. Haters gonna talk, don't listen to the shit. They tryna be like me, they know they can, yo. Can't even get lost. I'm on a pedestal, sitting on my throne. My neck be decked in gold. I don't do no hoes, I've got a queen though. I'm a king cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need you to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play it, I just win every day. I get it, I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need to nobody. I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten. Just let it sing. I don't play it, I just win every day. I get it, I'm a king. I told you guys before. Ready for the war to get me way much more. Got the oldest parts. Adam to my kingdom. Shout out to my fans for pledging your allegiance. You get a reward, the best flow you've ever heard. I don't be mixing with birds. I'm a lion on the surge, always pushing to the edge, facing arrows, never scared. For my greatness, I'm a servant, only under myself. I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play it, I just win every day. I get it, I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play
already
it,
struggle streaming. We only a couple minutes into it. Struggle streaming. That's what we call it when your internet signal is weak and everything glitching on you. We call it struggle streaming. All right, y'all. We are the Bravado Network, and we talk about Black people relationships from an image perspective. And this is Have the Conversation. Over here, struggle streaming already. I mean, at least give me 5 minutes for my introduction and get the struggle streaming and song glitching and all this other third. No. I gotta, you know what? No. I can't struggle stream with my intro. I love that intro. Let me see. Here we go. We gonna do that again. Here we go. Here we go. See? It's called struggle streaming. You can't get your stuff together. You click a button and don't get right the way you want to get to. I love that. You know, we kings over here. Yeah. That's a befitting intro song, and we definitely are kings. There we go.
King. I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play it, I just win every day. I get it, I'm a king, cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play it, I just win every day. I get it, I'm a king, and I will never knew. Plotting for my fall.
All right, y'all. I just had to get that without no glitching in it like we did at the beginning over here. Struggle streaming. We need to talk to the cable. I got like the top of the line, internet over here, and I'm struggle streaming at the beginning. This you know what? I think it's YouTube, because they got a problem when we start discussing, Black men issues, Black men moving, Black men economics, getting our families together, figuring this stuff out. That YouTube got a problem with that. They out here demonetizing other platforms, taking their likes away from them, taking their views away from them. Like there's some platforms out here that got like 100, 200,000 subscribers. They wake it up the next day and half their subscribers is gone, all because we out here doing what we need to do. Man, screw this. All right, let's get down to business. My name is Tavares J. Moore, and I am here I got some friends with us. Remember, we talk about Black people relationships from from an image standpoint. And just remember, image is the reputation that a person is known for, which includes, your behaviors, your character, your appearance. All of those things make up your appearance, and we deal with our issues from that standpoint. All right, last week, we started our Black Men Can't Lead series last week with examining that very notion of that there's this overwhelming feeling amongst our women that Black men can't lead. We looked at that issue from a standpoint of where we are today in terms of our relationships with one another. And what I mean by each other, I'm talking about Black men and Black women relationships. So too often, I hear a lot of our Black women talk about they just want a Black man to lead. And when asking them about being submissive, they often respond with, they will be submissive when they find the right one who can lead. So with over 75% of our women not married or in any significant long-term relationship, if you take what our women are saying at face value, that they will submit when they find a man that can actually, the right man that can actually lead, our 75% of our women are saying that there are just not enough black men that are fit to lead because they're not being submissive. They're not coming under the, if you are a Christian or got a Christian background, your man or your husband is your covering. They're refusing to come under covering with us. So are they saying that if 75% of our women are single and actually 54% of our Black men are single, what are they saying? That our men are not fit? We kind of asked that question on our stream last week about Black men's fitness. And also we asked, do our Black women have a valid point about our fitness? So let's recap some of the questions that we put out there for the fellas to talk about. We asked the question, when there's an issue in the family that needs to be solved, which man in your family is brought that issue that for either him to resolve or him come up with the plan that will lead to the resolution? What man in your family is doing that? Are you that man? We asked that question last week. We also asked, so what exactly or who exactly are Black men leading when over 70% of Black homes are headed by women? So if we are fit to lead, who are we leading when all the homes are, there ain't no men in the home? So who exactly are we leading? We also asked the question, what economic industry are Black men leading? We came up with a resounding kind of none, during that time. And according to blackdemographics.com, only 33% of Black men are married. Of that 33%, how many of them are actually leading their homes as well? Here's the bigger question that was asked last week. With all of these leadership gaps that we talked about or asked about, the bigger question, some of the men in the discussion last week stated that Black men are definitely fit to lead. But some of those affirmative statements were followed up by like qualifiers, like, yeah, well, if she allows us to, or if the power structure just get out of our way. Here's a follow-up question to those qualifiers. In order to lead, why do we need permission to do so? That's my question. Now, that particular question we're going to actually answer. We're going to use a whole stream on just that one question a little bit down the line. But here's what I want to do right now. And to be honest, I don't know how long we're going to deal with this topic today, because this is going to be, I think this is going to be quite heavy. But first, where does this notion come from that Black men can't lead? Why is this a thing anyway? Where did this come from? Like with most social constructs with Black folk, nothing is simple and nothing is really clear cut. Any multi-layered question regarding Black folks requires a very complicated answer. The short answer to most or almost all questions about the state of Black people right now and the ideals that are lacking in Black people right now, The short answer to why all of those things are is programming. Programming is the short answer. That says a lot. Programming says a lot. And it says nothing at the same time. But before we jump ahead into our first topic, let me just say, while I was researching and putting the stream together, I thought I knew a lot about the subject. The subject title of the stream today is buck breaking. But there was one piece of this subject that I did not know took place. And I pride myself to be a pretty good historian on issues that related to us. I mean, either I didn't know or I blocked it out. And coming to that realization, I'm pretty disgusted by one of the methodologies that we're going to be talking about today. In our second stream today, which will deal with the title subject, we'll get into a practice that I feel every Black man should know about. But let's talk about programming. I think today you can't talk about Black people's programming without mentioning or discussing the Willie Lynch letter. The Willie Lynch letters were nothing but a system of programming. We're not going to go into the entire Willie Lynch letter tonight, but you can go look it up for yourself and the history of Willie Lynch. I'm actually going to talk about who he was in just a second. However, I do want to go over three concepts within the Willie Lynch letter related to programming. After that, I have a question for the men that have joined me tonight and the lady that's joined me tonight. And that question is, here's the question, and I'll ask it later because I'm about to bring up the Willie Lynch stuff. How much of historical programming have affected the concept or the notion that Black men can't lead? Now, the name of the stream today is called Black Men Can't Lead, Buck Breaking. While we get into this discussion about Willie Lynch, I want you guys to really understand the Willie Lynch letters and buck breaking. While they're related, those are two different concepts. One is a programming, and one is how to program. So understand that. So if we, in the Willie Lynch discussion, if we get into that, and I stop you on the buck breaking, because after we do our 3D radio break, we come back, we're going to talk about buck breaking specifically, okay? But the question is, how much of historical programming have affected the notion that Black men can't lead? The notion or the concept of that, or that our women kind of feel that way to varying degrees. Okay. All right. Let me bring this up real quick. I got to make this bigger because I'm getting old. All right. Who is Willie Lynch? Okay. Who is Willie Lynch? William Willie Lynch was a British slave owner that resided in the West Indies. There's a lot of misconception that there are people who actually think that Willie Lynch was a West Indian. He's not. He's a British man who was a slave owner in the West Indies, which is like the Caribbean area. And he came to the United States to advise American slave owners how to keep their slaves restrained and in line. And according to an essay in Brotherhood Man, The Odyssey of a Black Man in America, an anthology lynching, or the term lynch law, is actually attributed to Willie Lynch's name, or are attributed to him. The hanging of Black men. The William Lynch speech, or the Willie Lynch speech, or it's more commonly known as the Willie Lynch letter, is from, there's a lot of debate about its origins, but it attracted a lot of widespread attention when it was scattered on the internet in the 1990s. it was said to have been addressed to an audience on the banks of the James River in Virginia. So they're saying that the first time anybody heard about the concept of Willie Lynch, this was happening. It happened in Virginia. He was addressing a group of slave owners in Virginia in 1712 regarding the control of their slaves, because during that era, there was multiple rebellions going on within the slave industry, because that was actually still a little early on. So you had a lot of these Africans, that they were in a country that was very, very rebellious, obviously, and didn't take kindly to being captured. So due to quite a few slave revolts in the area, in the Virginia, South Carolina area prior to his visit, and he had a dubious reputation of being an authoritarian, being an authority and a strict slave owner, and believers in his concept really revered his concept. So I'm gonna talk about I told you 3 concepts I want to go over. The first one was breaking the spirit. Okay. One of the strategies that he employed was how to break the spirit of the man, of the black man. All right. Well, at the time, there's no such thing as a black man. We were just Africans. Breaking the spirit of the man, much like you would break the spirit of a horse. So he automatically dehumanized black men or African men and compared them to cattle, to basically horses, property. And everybody knows what happens when you have a wild horse. You have to break that horse to make him fit to ride. And ride, and then also you have to do is ride the woman as though she was a wild donkey until she is tamed and offers no resistance. What that basically means is, what this is nicely saying, and ride the woman until she's tamed. What they're basically saying is you rape her, whatever you want to call it, you rape her until she submits. The black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become a self-fulfilling, self-refueling, and self-generating for hundreds of years, meaning, and maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch in. You must also create an environment where you have the old black man versus a young black male, and you must also use dark-skinned slaves versus light-skinned slaves. Remember, during slavery, if you were a light-skinned slave, you actually worked in the house. You got treated a little better. You got bathed. You got to eat the scraps of food left over off of the meals that were protected. You actually had a higher status on the plantation if you were in the house, which created envy between the field hands and the people who worked in the house. You also must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. How do you see that play out today? How do you see that play out today when you got 75% of our women are the heads of the houses? How do you see that today when a family divorces, you take the children you give the children from the men and give the women the power to actually determine if you can see your child or not? The male versus the male versus female keep us constantly divided. They must love, respect, and only trust us, meaning white people. You got to create a situation. You got to break their spirit. You got to put them at odds with one another. And then you got to give them the illusion that their salvation and their safety is only through them. Remember what happened in the 1960s when entitlement programs started running rampant in the black community, and they started excommunicating black men from the work environment. They started creating projects and telling these women, hey, you come in, get this Section 8, get this projects, get this food stamps, get this consistent $600 a month. We'll take care of you, but your man can't be there. break his tie to the woman, bullwhip the black man in front of the woman until the child gives, and bullwhip the black man in front of the woman and his child until he gives up, and gives up his will to resist. Beat him into submission. Beating a man in front of his woman renders a severe sense of her not feeling safe. All right, everybody go ahead and cam up. Miss Philly, go ahead and unmute for me. Mr. Elemento, please unmute for me. Here's the question I have for you again. How much of the historical programming affected the notion that black men can't lead? Mr. Frederick.
I would say it has affected it affected the notion a lot. The simple fact of saying, the simple fact of that being is kind of what we see currently, what we see presently. Like you mentioned earlier, single parent households plus the like the Section 8 and the Medicaid and the Medicaid, all those systems that is communicating with men from the household, and certain types of media, such as radio and television also have done that as well. I also say that we haven't really done ourselves any favors, not that we see or hear in media as well, and also living up to whatever types of stereotypes that are branded to us. So I'll say it has affected us a lot.
Okay, Mr. Patton.
Yeah, it's definitely has affected us. The programming out there, through history has pretty much removed us all from it, from our position of power, So yeah.
The one thing that I understand about programming, the thing that we don't talk about programming, even though we know this stuff has happened, the thing about programming is the fact that we know it doesn't affect the fact that we still will do it. Miss Philly, how do you feel the historical programming has affected that? Miss Philly, you there? Did she just fall off? Go ahead, Hezekiah. Go ahead and answer the question for me until Miss Philly gets back.
I am from Lynchburg.
She dropped the ball.
Go ahead.
I am from Lynchburg, Virginia, so I know a little bit of history about that. But
go ahead.
His way of doing things, even when the slaves was free, that didn't teach us how to live. Because what he taught them way back then, it was meant to last for thousands of years. And it's still going on today. But they have switched it around to using it as a modern day slavery basis. Instead of, in the white sheets and so now they got the judges, the lawyers, and how to disrupt the home with free stuff, free this. You can get TANF or you can get child support. He just showed them the blueprint. And they're still using that blueprint today. And until we open up and see that they're still using the same blueprint that he gave them back then, it's not going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Miss Philly?
Okay. It's basically like I mentioned before in another segment that we did. I was sharing with how the system, it was built on, instead of in the terms of wanting the government, the system, all of that to be the woman's man, because it goes back trying to rip and in a sense, get rid of the man, the black man, the masculinity. Um, they don't want that. They want men to be us, pretty much. They want the women to be dependent up on them for everything, because it's like, okay, well, if I give you this, I give you that, you don't need that. And so that's where it's been, why it's so much clash, because it is being programmed. It's being put out there in so many words and in so many ways. So that's my take on that.
One of the ladies on one of the streams one time, you know, we got into this conversation about, you know, what happens if you get a guy that is fit to lead, and she had a home, he has a home, and I told her, I said, well, if I'm the head of this house, if I'm the covering, you know, you got to get rid of your home because you're coming over here. And she's like, no, I'm not doing that. Why not? And I'm like, why not? Well, I got to keep my home. For what? Well, just in case you fear. Absolute fear that we can't do what we need to do as men to keep you covered. And also one of the things I want to touch on, and I don't want to go too far off the beaten path. You know, everybody's getting all bent out of shape about, you know, Deion Sanders and him leaving Jackson State and going to Colorado and stuff like that. And I tell people, I was on the sports stream, and I told people, you know, he's like, yo, Deion gave his word. Yes, he did. He promised some things. I said, but you have to understand what the role of a coach is for a football program. It's to win games. It's to win games and to recruit. Your football coach is a salesman. Sometimes, yeah, you gotta overpromise. You gotta promise stuff. Our politicians do that. Promise us all of this stuff that we may or may not, that they may or may not be delivered in. But my point is with this, and I said on the sports stream that I was on, I said, why do we have this expectation for our black men to be the Messiah? And that he can't just be a man. Every other culture, the man can just be a man. And if he says, or he comes proven that he can handle covering his wife, raising a family, making good decisions in conjunction with the wife. And if the man says, you get rid of your house, that woman gets rid of her house. But our programming has our women to say, if I find me a woman who's a wife and she has her own home, and I tell her she got to get rid of her home, her knee-jerk reaction is going to be no. You might screw up. I'm over 40 years old. What do you mean I might screw up? I ain't screwed up yet.
Definitely fear.
Fear. And what the Willie Lynch letter did, the programming. Now, none of us was around in 1712, but the effects and the how powerful it is when you ingrain something into a culture, when you program something into a culture. That fear of our women to not trust a proven black man, the fact that there's still a fear there to not trust that black man, you know what I mean, is proof positive that things get passed on through the generations and its continual programming. So how do we deal with that, Mr. Elemental? How do we deal with that?
I think the first way you deal with it is accepting that it is an issue.
Boom.
Not trying to see it as some conspiracy theory or some far off concept that does not exist in all our communities. I think once we acknowledge it, then we can truly address, you know, how it's still affecting our communities. For me, that shows up like baby mamas and baby daddies, right? Because the core black families don't necessarily mesh because of these things, because of the tactics that Willie Lynch used and brought into plantation life, made it to where these things are still happening today. That's why you see that there's a certain time frame that these things tend to happen. It's based on his tactics to keep the family separate. So again, I think it's just about acknowledging the fact that these things are still at play, right? They may look different, they may sound different, but the core values of these letters are still at play today. The only thing that we can do is address it for what it really is, not some conspiracy.
Miss Angela. Hey there, welcome. Miss Angela, can you hear me? You got go ahead and unmute Miss Queen of Collaboration.
Yes.
Okay, the question of the stream, Miss Angela, is how much of historical programming have affected the notion that Black men can't lead? We just went over the Willie Lynch letters.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect our women's view of Black males' leadership?
Well, I was just seeing the comment that Frederick had posted. You know, we went from one thing to the next, and we never really addressed anything. Like we went from slavery to slavery. It just changed the look of slavery. It never ended. So now we have our men behind prison walls, and it's just a mess. And we have to understand, okay, when we gonna come out of this? When we gonna say enough is enough? For the ones, because you do have, I'm looking at men. These men right here on these screens, they look like they are leaders. They look like they could lead somebody. I would feel comfortable with them leading me. So we do have men that are capable of leading. So the question is, do you have women that want to come off the high horse and say, okay, let me humble myself and give this.
You're talking about we're talking about fellowship. The thing is, here's the thing. You know, I understand that there are some. The sum is not the majority. The sum is the absolute minority of us, and that's not what we're judged on. I know there are women out here that will follow. I know there are Black men out here who are more than capable and more than fit to lead. But the fact of the matter is, that's not represented in the masses. And my thinking is, you know, if it's not represented in the masses,
I mean, do we have to start somewhere? I mean, we have to start somewhere. We can't always think that everything is going to come in the masses. Like, if it took us how long to get where we are?
And where is that?
Most of us thinking on the terms that we're thinking on, because a lot of us, well, with me, about 7 years ago, you couldn't have me sitting here on this, having this conversation with y'all. So it took us time to get here. We didn't just wake up one day and be like, okay, I have arrived, and I see that we have an issue. We have a problem. Like, it took us some time to realize that we have a problem.
Yeah, Hezekiah.
But you know, for me, and then being in this world, and then being in the dating game, and being single, and trying to find that right one, like, okay, I'm going to lead. Then you take that chance, and you're like, that person ain't even on the same planet you on, and you like, you know, so why am I here and you are there? And their ways are more towards what the world is offering them now, the social medias, the Instagrams, the TikToks. And for us men, we're not really all about that. We all about building something, building yourself up financially. And the women, these, like you said, that modern day programming, they have programmed the women to not even notice us. The only thing they really notice us is what they can get out of us.
And that's not everybody, but yeah.
No, that's not everybody, but I'm speaking on, you know, some of the females that I have met or came across. You know, at the beginning, everything is, you know, it's good, but then you're like, wow, okay, you got to be like it is what it is.
Yeah.
So where are you meeting these females at?
Hold on a second before you answer that, Miss Angela. Here's the thing, and all you got to do is kind of look at our representation. Our women, Whose train is that? Our women gravitate to two extremes of black men. They either gravitate towards the lesser productive versions of us, or they want the extreme hyper successful, fiscally stable versions, and that leaves the rest of the men in the middle with what? Remember now, according to the we go, Angela, you know, I go back and forth about the data. Only 20% of black men are making 80% of the babies in the black community. Only 20%. 54% of black men do not have, the majority of black men don't have any children. That means our women are selecting the men that they find valuable. And then talking about leadership and protection but the bulk of men are in the middle. Miss Philly?
I'm here. Going off of what Angela was stating about everything, not like we have to start somewhere, and everything's not going to happen overnight. I get what she's saying. Like, the thing about it is, like, let's pick a place to start, and then when it happens, it'll be like a domino effect. That's pretty much how everything in society has been. Like, it'll hit one person and then it'll take off like that. Just keep dominoing, going round and round, or whatever, however it's set up. So I think that's what I wanted to say on that. Like, just, we need to, like, I can't see the names, but like this gentleman over here said, like, we know it's an issue and there are issues. We acknowledge those, bring more light and awareness, pick a place where to start, and then act upon it. And once, just like with everything else that's happened in society, it'll eventually take off. I mean, slow progress is still progress. So it just needs to happen.
I got a question for the guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got a question for the guys, and I'm not even sure if I even know or got an answer for myself. But with this programming, especially when you look at the full Willie Lynch letter and the full spectrum of how to break your slave, and what it talked about was encapsulating their mind. That's what it talked about. So the fact that we can see in a lot of facets of our culture, even sometimes within ourselves, a lot of these tactics that they did as black men, as black men, and as men who's supposed to be the front line for our families. What do we do with this now? I mean, we have very rebellious women. We have women who feel they don't need us. We have women who select some of the worst of our group to reproduce with, but yet we're still responsible for we're held responsible for the outcomes of our so-called black community. What do we do? How do we deal with this?
You know, for me, it's all about repetition and just learning, and you got to keep educating each other every day. It's not something you can just pick up one day and we're gonna have a discussion about. You have to keep going at it, because I can sit back and remember myself when I was young, and the things that, like you said, I was at the bottom of the totem pole where I didn't even care about no female. What? All right, I go get another one. Boom, boom. Then I was at the top of the totem pole, and like you said, when you at that middle, now you at that chill stage. It's like, man, what did I do now? You got to think about that woman too. It ain't just the men. Look how many times they've been hurt. Look how many times somebody has used what Willie Lynch has used, and the black man has used that in their household as well. See, we don't think about, like, when I was going, it was okay for the black women to tell his women what to do.
Hezekiah, you're talking about the 20% of men, which is not the majority of us, which goes back to when we're dealing with her image and her stuff, you know, talking about, and please ladies correct me if you feel like I'm wrong in my statement, but she's responsible for the volume of men that she run through her home and run through her life. She's responsible for that. I mean, you get it once, you get it twice, we can understand that, but you getting the same kind of dude over and over and over, that's not an accident, and that's not an accident. You a lady, you know, and you looking in your house, and each one of your offspring's got a different set of DNA tied to them. Mm-hmm. At some point, we're making choices, regardless if we want to believe it or not. And the one argument that I'm kind of tired of hearing a little bit is, I was young. Oh, I didn't know no better. Yes, you did. All you got to do is look around the community, look in your family. You just repeated whatever almost every other lady in your family did.
Well, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And the 54% of brothers that are out here that are single, childless, earn enough money to be in the middle class, we are held responsible for what the 20% do. But if we're held responsible for that 20%, or we're expected to come in and fix it, except me and mine, we're a package deal. But then you won't. But then you won't follow.
That's true.
Which is going to lead me to my next question in the next segment. We're going to do our 3DD radio break in a second here. Here's my next question. We're going to get into buck breaking. Is buck breaking responsible for black women not actually coming into fellowship with black men? And buck breaking isn't what I thought it was. So we'll have that discussion of what we think it is after the break. Okay, we'll be right back. All right.
Tired of all these studies, man, we need some answers. Cause right now it all just seems like useless banter. For us, the thought of happy days ain't going too well. So now I fight against the taser that they gave to Chanel, to the unneeded escort, and they did it to Denzel. And y'all got the nerve to wonder why we so temperamental. These words of retaliation from levels of frustration. Spoken responsibly throughout this whole situation. It's amazing, a liberal place to deal with racing, with a blind eye, defocusing mitigation. It's just the truth, man, and I bet it pretty penny. It's the very thing that gave us that job to Matt Kenny. Yeah, it's still Adria Irwin, it's still hurting. That's why these pains need some type of verbal asserting. Those that gotta say it's fine, and that really bothers me. Cause 80% of my folks is living in poverty. It's a numbers game, and we take on the weight. We only make 6% of the state, of course we ain't straight. But in the capitalistic district, they only limit us to fail, so they can get that bread when they put us in jail. Cause Midwest living is the craziest. Passive aggressive depression, how they hating us. Depression goes down, material escapism. Capitalism trickle down from structural racism. Lord help us, cause this has gotta get better. Cause right now it's too much of the Willie Lynch letter. Scare us with brutality and ruin us with envy. Neutralize our love of self when it became media ready. Put it on display as the feed of the day. Now there are communities of folks acting the exact same way. Instagram and Snapchat and all the things that happen. Babies drilling and twerking, making the commentary sad. Even deeper is that some cops have cocked the hammer with no regard whether our black lives matter. But unlike the past, we can capture it on camera. Running on Facebook Live, running book challenger. Screaming stop resisting late is what I can't understand. Cause you can say it after you go and pop the bootleg man. Or the homie in Minnesota trying to get his ID, leaving a 4-year-old in the backseat to comfort or mommy. These are just a few examples of urban analysis. That most excessive force holding the validness, leaving our appetite for justice mighty ravenous. Lord help it, the chickens coming home to roost is what Dallas was. This is not a threat of us being problematic. It's just time for solutions because it grows more tragic. Cause the same way that most attacks are systematic, there's gotta be some type of plan that we can combat it. Our chiefs say the police are the public are the police. So why are so many folks with badges disturbing the peace? And when most say from my hood, they kicking up dust. Seem like they don't care about us cause they ain't us. Well, now we already hurting from all of these conditions. Then top that off with always having to fit the description. Come with a vague line about having a suspicion. Then when we get emotional, it's called opposition. Man, there's only one way we gonna change the situation, to let the people know that it's time for liberation. Right now we gotta free ourselves from hateration. This is a proclaiming love is the basic foundation. Love for ourselves is as much love for others, instead of love of the dollar bill and the race for numbers. Cause the economic world is gonna hit a snag, cause people are mad from hashtags and body bags. So what we left with, I say it's time to uplift. Be thankful for every day, cause every day is a gift. And know that love is the only thing to take out the greed. I still believe, go on and put it on a mustard seed. Cause now is the time that we gotta take on problems. We gotta break the chains, try to get some more options. Cause more options only leads to more achievement. Teach a man to fish if you don't believe it. I know some things gotta change some way, somehow. Before it goes too far, we gotta change things now. Right now. Can I exhale? My life is artwork, you might not understand this. The way that I spit it like putting strokes on the canvas. Taking notes of all the urban cries. Put it down, materialize, then watch as the paint dries. Better bet the ink, cause every time I think it's time to keep it flow while these other cats sing. No Titanic, too over dramatic. I feel like new edition in the brain now. Tell me, can you stand it? With each word I'm building me a steeple. And if you open my works up, there you'll find my cathedral. You got your wood stains, a little glass paint, but it all tell a story. Man, think that they can't. Where I come from, it's deer hunters and street guns. So I spray these words like the Uzi weighs a ton. It's that heavy. I'm pouring this out from my heart to give you the truth. The way that you see is art. Now you can tell by the voice that it ain't a joke. And everything that spit is just like a brush stroke. Paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch. Yo, this life's artwork. Now you can tell by the voice that it ain't a joke. And everything that it spit is like a brush stroke. Paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch. Yo, this life's artwork. Description, better yet my mission is to visualize and give the world vision. Work to heal the streets with a little audio heat. And smooth it all out over laid back beats. A to the R to the T, Wisco flow. Like you're in a gallery and see a Picasso. But this ain't Picasso, baby. Even though it's like Jay, cause it's gonna drive the world crazy. This is for those admiring and looking. I heat it up for Instagram and play the rest cooking. It's so acrylic. Every time that I spit it, my foliage show that I all get it. Speaking of, this art get wows and awes. Like a masterpiece that's up in the halls. Everything is so realistic, but better yet, man, yo, it's so artistic. Cause now you can tell by the voice that it ain't a joke. And everything that spit is just like a brush stroke. Paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a picture. Yo, this life is artwork. Now you can tell by the voice that it ain't a joke. And everything that it spit is like a brush stroke. Paint a pitch, paint a pitch.
So every week, on the stream, we'll be featuring an independent artist, the music. Calling it the 3D radio break. A couple minutes. Go out and pay some tribute to what we doing on this show is art too. Having the conversation, putting the stream together, trying to make it informative. It's no different than a spoken word artist, hip hop artist, R&B singer. You know anybody who's good? You feel like they deserve, 5-8 minutes on our stream? Bring them on. Okay. All right. That was Rob D's, by the way. Rob D's. He's actually the fellow who actually did our original intro theme, Have the Conversation original theme. That was him. So every week on the stream, we'll feature a new artist. I actually have quite a few who reached out. So they'll actually be coming on the panel as well, and we'll feature their song on the break as well. All right. Mr. Patton, Bishop Patton, do you what is fellowship?
What is fellowship?
Fellowship for a woman, yeah.
Her trusting her man, her being a partner in whatever direction he's going into. That would be the main thing.
Right. Her ability to trust the leadership to follow, even if she's unsure.
Right.
One would think that you would, you can question, a decision, you can express your opinion, but at the end of the day, as a lady, you should always try your best to choose a man who got a good mind for problem solving directions, that you can trust. Because trust and believe, if you got a decent enough guy, he makes a decision and it turns out to be wrong decision, he'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll fix it. You ain't got to worry about that. So I asked the question, is buck breaking responsible for black women not actually coming into fellowship with black men? Listen, I thought buck breaking was really what the Willie Lynch letter was talking about. The Willie Lynch letter for me was more of like a system of programming. Buck breaking is how you get to that system of programming. So I got a little clip here that's going to talk very in grave detail about buck breaking and what that is. And then I'm going to play it real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Okay.
Buck breaking was mainly utilized in the Caribbean. It was used against enslaved men who were seen as defiant. The process included forcing the male slave to bend over a tree stump, drop trowel, expose his bare behind while it is propped in the air. The slave was then flogged to tenderize the flesh for the sodomy that followed multiple times. This form of punishment was done in full view of the slave family and friends to instill fear in the hopes to prevent future rebellion. Men of bondage who were victims of this inhumane, sadistic, homoerotic, emasculating punishment often ran away from the plantations or killed themselves as the humiliation was much too strong to overcome. The sodomy was often performed by a white man who traveled from plantation to rape male slaves. Sex farms allowed multiple slave owners to gang rape male slaves as punishment for any supposed wrongdoing. Homosexuality in this era was not a popular pastime, yet raping male slaves as a form of plantation punishment was somehow acceptable. Buck breaking is typically left out of the history books due to its taboo nature of male-on-male rape. Society has ignored any testimony to male-on-male rape until only recently. Sexual violence used to project fear can be a powerful tool of manipulation. weaponizing sexuality can debilitate one's core self-esteem and disable their sense of community. Buck-breaking was a means to squash rebellion before it was even conceptualized. Families of the enslaved bucks were forced to bear witness to the sodomy, ensuring there was no will to be defiant or rebellious. Sexual mutilation, including castration, were other forms of punishment for those with stronger will. These acts solidified the mental dominance white men needed to tame their bucks into obedient, working slaves. Emasculating male slaves physically was the final step to subdue the defiant buck.
Was that description of buck breaking new to anybody?
No.
Unfortunately, not.
Yeah, that was yeah, for me, when I actually got into it, I thought buck breaking was, what I mean, I guess it was what Willie Lynch did was a form of buck breaking, breaking the spirit, but the term buck breaking was basically to completely and utterly remove a man's manhood from him. And in the most vile, vicious way another man can do it. And to remove the spirit of a black man, his manhood, you do it in front of his child and in front of his woman. So the buck breaking did two things. It rendered the male impotent, maybe not physically, but spiritually impotent. And then it also created a profound, overwhelming sense of anxiety in the black woman to realize that the person that's supposed to be there to protect her cannot. And then if you go tie this in with the Willie Lynch letter, there's a portion of the Willie Lynch letter that talks about if you capture the female mind, she will raise her male children weak, her women strong. So this whole notion that our women don't follow us, don't trust our leadership, I mean, is this something that they just that it's so pervasive now that it's just ingrained in who they are?
That's another way to look at it for sure.
I believe so, and by design. I mean,
yeah,
by design.
Yeah, that's what buck breaking is.
Broken society.
It's still happening. They just changed tactics. But that doing that in front of them, it also destroys the nuclear family, right? Because how can you have this ideal of what this man should be, and now you saw that taken away from him, right? So what is a black woman left to do but kind of pick up those pieces and still try to allow this man to be the man that she needs him to be, while the oppressor is trying to take everything from him? That means strength. That means family. That means leadership, right? I don't think that, black women are in a sense or ready to just say that black men can't lead because of things like this, that the systems of oppression have said, no, you can't. And we're going to make sure that you can't. That all these tactics don't say that internally right? That our blessings from the Most High do not give us the power to lead. This is just showing the systems of oppression that force us into non-leadership positions like plantations and prisons, right? And so then when our women look at what they want from us, what are they left with but images of people coming back from this incarceration where they have been forced to become something that they may not have been.
And can I say what it has done and where everything starts? It starts in the mind, right? So they break us psychology first. Break the mind first. Then you can break everything else.
Yeah, I'm just kind of sitting here quiet because, you know, the more I think about it, I think about what buck breaking looks like today, like what it looks like today. And it kind of made me reassess what they were doing to Kyrie Irving, you know, a little bit.
Yep.
It made me reassess, you know, because they were calling that buck breaking, you know, they were trying to buck break Kyrie. And I'm not sure, and maybe I just don't know. Maybe I just haven't never thought about it. That's what that was.
Yeah.
What they did to Philando Castile in Minneapolis when he was in the car with his woman and his baby and executing him in front of his baby and his woman. Yeah, that's buck breaking. What they did to George Floyd in full view of the entire world live.
Any type of public humiliation is a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it happens every time we see another young black man in a perp walk on the news. Every time you see a young black man in handcuffs, they make sure it is right in focus, right?
Yeah.
Some of the other things we see, some of the villains, some of the horrible people that we see who have done horrible things, what do you see? You see pictures of them, right? You see them in better images, not us. When we do anything, here they come, bringing us out of the car, putting us into the car, like, this is your home. This is where you belong. These are images of you that I need you to carry with you and pass down to your offspring.
Yep.
Yep.
You know,
yep.
You know, that trauma and that passed down trauma, you know, is very potent. I remember having a conversation with a lady that I've known for years, and she always just kind of like rails against, like, you know, black men, you gotta watch them. They're vicious, they're violent. I mean, you want to be, the moment you don't do what they say do, they want to kick your ass, and they do this and they do that, and for years. And then one day, and she was giving me the impression that she was speaking from experience until the day I asked her, have you ever been done like that? And her response was, well, no. I go, what? No. How do you have this view of a black man and what we
like
are and what we do, and you have never experienced that yourself? Well, I got a girlfriend, or I hear this, and I said, but you have never. And then the more conversation I have with women who talk like that, I always will ask them, you know, have you experienced that kind of violence out of your men? And the answer 9 times out of 10 is no. What that tells me is how powerful it is to pass on trauma, even if you didn't experience it. I have a young lady in my life. She's just about to turn 20, and she is angry and mad all the time, in the worst moods, always snapping. And I'm like, now, that's her mama do that. You know what I mean? Just all, and so she just, when she was 17, she was like, you know, she said something to me. She asked me, she goes, Why can't a man keep his word? Why y'all always? And I looked at her. She's 17 at this time. I said, first of all, what the hell do you know about a man at 17? Nothing.
Not
And then fast forward a year and a half later, and she's like snapping about some, just angry. And I told her, I said, what are you so angry about? You ain't had your first heartbreak yet. What are you angry about? What are you mad about? And then the more I deconstructed that conversation, she's revealing stuff, conversations that she's having with her mother and about her mother's relationships and what her mother is going through. And this mother is passing down this trauma and this imagery of a black man to now a young girl who should be light, airy, happy, bouncy. Y'all remember? Yeah, come on now. When we were all teenagers, man, the girls weren't angry and snap. Man, these girls were fun to be around. Passing down trauma, passing down imagery, even if you haven't had any direct. That's kind of what I associate like with buck breaking and how our women view us and why they have this knee-jerk reaction to think, or not even to think, but just to say that black men can't lead. Well, why aren't y'all leading? What do you mean? And then when you ask the question, they've never experienced that stuff. And that shows how powerful programming and trauma and passing things on, carrying, I'm a big fan of don't carry somebody else's water. What you carrying somebody else's water for? I started out at the beginning of this, saying that I didn't know how long we're going to talk about this because it's kind of one of those mood killers. When you really start to think about how those things, like this started happening in 1712, and here we are 2022, almost 23, hundreds of years later, dealing with the ramification and the effects and the generational centuries of programming. And none of us were anywhere near what was back then. No, we don't know anybody, and we couldn't name a relative that was alive back then. Even our grandparents that were born, like my great grandmother was born in 1910. She couldn't even relate to that. Maybe her grandmother, maybe. But this is what we passed down. And we're dealing with right now his image, our man's image, and I said it on day one, I think we are the ones who are responsible to trying to fix this. And the question is how. I don't know, like the brother said, is, have to accept what it is. And I think we have a hard time with that too. Yeah. Just accepting that this is what it is, that we are here. Just like I have a hard time wrapping up. I was telling another one of my lady friends, she has a 25-year-old son, and I was telling her, I said, when your son gets ready to go out and start his own family, he won't be able to start his own family. And she looked at me like I was crazy. I said, if he wants a black woman, he's not going to be able to start his own family. He's not going to be able to start from scratch. He will not have that experience of being with a woman and everything with her and with him will be for the first time. In order for, we're going to have to do that, but in order for us to do that, we're going to have to even accept the fact that it's hard to wrap my head around that there virtually are no black women left in this country that are single and childless. That number is about 3 to 5%. And once you get past 25, it's basically zero. if we want a black woman to sustain the black race, we're going to have to go in and do that. The 54% of black men who don't have children are going to have to go into the women who got children by other men, and probably a man that's a lesser tier man than you. Well, we'll get to that on another day.
I mean, that's that. I think that kind of goes into it takes a village, right?
Okay.
Like, understandably, right? You have to go into this situation. I mean, you don't have to. It's a choice to go into a situation of a family that already is somewhat built. But as a leader, you take on all the followers, right? And whatever, especially if you are the leader of a community, then everyone looks to you, right? Just because your neighbor lives 2 doors down, they are still part of your community and under your responsibility as said leader. Do they sleep in the room next to you? Absolutely not. But they still need the same thing from you, right? I understand what you're saying, right? Going into this situation is not necessarily built or what we think is designed for us. But think about how many of our families would not have existed if we felt that way from the beginning, okay? Because while Master was buck breaking us, he was sneaking around the slave quarters to deal with our women.
That he called an animal, which is bestiality.
Right. Clearly, they were doing lots of things that they like to turn a blind eye to, right? Mm-hmm. But listen, these are just proofs that the American Holocaust is still happening, right? Because we can draw a direct lineage from Willie Lynch and his tactics to some of the things that we are seeing today, right? Because some of these things, trust me, some of these things are happening behind those penitentiary walls. They just don't make them up.
Yes.
So, I mean, again, I wouldn't say it's the fault of our black women or our communities, because we are the ones who are under attack, right? And so we take this force-fed brainwashing back to our communities and say, oh, this is how we're supposed to be. This is what the black man leadership looks like, compared to the completely scripted of those who we see that are, Supreme Court justices, attorney generals, right? They are generals in military service. We see them. But that is the image that's being painted by the oppressor to say, this is the comfortable black man in America, not the criminalized one that we see on a regular basis.
Yep, absolutely. Listen, we're next on our next stream, on our next stream, which will be part 3 of Black Men Can't Lead. We're actually going to talk about where's our black man's backbone. We're going to talk about the responsibilities of the 54%, the single childless who has enough money to be in the middle class. Do these brothers who actually who are not invested, because if you don't have any children, really, you're really not invested into the long-term survivalship of the community. So next we're going to talk about what's the responsibility now that it's there, now that we're here and we got the vast majority of our men with resources to maintain a family, who worked hard to do that, who have been disciplined not to run around and have children. What is the 54% responsibility to the survival of us? Okay, stick around. We're going to debrief this at the end. Thank you guys for joining us. Give me a second. We'll be right back. All right, y'all. How did y'all think that went?
Thought it was getting into some dicey things, man. I definitely appreciate the video of going into depth about buck breaking. That is always a difficult conversation to have, whether you know the information or not. It's always startling. So I appreciate you with starting the conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you know right now. Like almost every single stream that I've ever done, YouTube has flagged it, including the one we did last week. I do not expect anything else other than them flagging this one as well. You know,
off the rip. Huh?
And yeah. I mean, I can. Yeah, as soon as I was hit in stream, it'd be flagged. Like they pay me like 35 cents a stream or something like that. You know, it's something small and ridiculous. You know, and they don't want to give me that based on what the conversations that we have, which is fine. This one, I was really excited when I was like coming up with the ideas for these first set of streams for us for his image, but the more I got into it, the more I was just kind of got, I don't know what the word down was, or more of a just like, you know, a lot of this information I had came access to in my college days and really haven't revisited it up until when I started putting the stream together and started realizing like how deep this was about what they did to us.
Yeah.
You know, and how pervasive, you know, I hear like the dominant culture always talking about that we need to stop talking about it or it's over with and stuff. Well, I can get on board with that if the effects of it wasn't still happening. And I get pissed off at these black people like what's his name, Michael Wilbarn on the sports show. He talks like oh, we ain't going through the man. Come on, man. Come on now.
I mean, but from his perspective and people like him, they haven't felt the struggle in a very long time, right? Because they're just beyond, like you're saying, right, this 54% or even this middle class, right? They don't know what middle class existence feels like or looks like. I remember seeing a Tyler Perry flick where they were like, you know, you're so far, do you even know how much a loaf of bread costs? Yeah. Right? Or do you just have someone who goes and takes care of that light work for you? You know what I'm saying? Like they don't come from the same struggle. Even if they have, they're so separate from it that we are almost just as foreign to them as our enemies are to us. Although when you're talking to a Sambo or Quimbo, you don't know which way is up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this one was different. And I'm thinking to myself, I thought I knew what buck breaking was, but when I got into it, I was like, maybe I didn't know, or maybe I forgot. You know, I just got disgusted. You know, I knew that they did some vile, vicious, heinous things, but you know, the one thing about evil is that it has no bottom. You know, it just has no bottom. And like, you call yourself a straight man. I mean, like, how in the hell you going? I don't know.
It's interesting when you address things like this, because when you look at how much effort the media has put into, you know, stopping the movement of people's fluid sexuality, but then you find out things about like this. So to me, it begs the question, are you really fighting against this? Or do you just really want to just go all in and let people start marrying animals and shit? Like you're comfortable with showing people this what they called homoeroticism, right? Gang raping slaves. Like, come on, weaponizing sexuality.
Yeah, that's what the man said in the narrator. Weaponizing it.
Weaponizing sexuality.
And if you haven't noticed, the alphabet community, they're targeting black men for the conversion. They're pushing this crap on us.
Man, no disrespect to that cat. I saw him on that. I saw them today, and they said my pronouns are he, she, and that bitch. How about that? Like, man, like that is that where we're going? Like this is assimilation 2.0, if you will.
Yeah, man, we got some. I don't, I wake up some days and I'm like, feel good that we're gonna be okay. Then other days I wake up and I'll be like, man, this fight just seems like it's insurmountable.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they don't show, Jay-Z trying to buy a football team. They don't show Money Mayweather putting $2 billion up to buy an NBA franchise, and they still won't answer that man's call.
Oh, guess what? Here's what. Speaking of that, Byron Allen tried to buy the Broncos. You see that was a thing for like for a half a second, and Byron Allen has the money. He has the money. And another thing is too, I know this may sound bad, but one of my favorite thing to tell white people is that a black man owns the Weather Channel. Byron Allen owns the Weather Channel, and so that's. I know that's petty, but a black man owns the weather. But the fact that they wouldn't even let him in to own, even the notion of owning
the fact
men.
It's fine. They're getting on my nerves.
Because when you're talking about these national ball clubs and stuff, these are rich billionaires who own a collection of men. They own people.
Modern day slavery. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's modern day slavery.
Man.
Like there's no way in the world when this Kaepernick crap went out, you could tell how powerful those billionaires are, because all the brothers had to do was refuse to play on day one of the NFL season. They could have suited up, went to the stadium, but refused to come out of that locker room. Nah, y'all ain't finna do this brother like that, and he ain't do nothing wrong. You got people in the NFL who committed murder who out on the field.
And as consumers, especially black consumers, we should have done everything in our buying power to shut down the NFL for at least one season.
Yep.
But I knew people in my circle said, "Are you kidding? I don't care about. You think I'm gonna miss NFL? I'm not gonna miss my team. I'm not."
Your team. What dividend check did you get? What shares of your?
Okay, where's your official license slave collar that says you have to check in and out at certain times?
Definitely. Yeah, I think these conversations they're not one-offs. We'll have them again. I don't like where I personally do not like where our collective black male image is. I almost don't care about what it is in the national conversation. I care about what it is with our women.
Yeah.
Our women have a really skewed version of what an actual masculine black man looks like, what responsible black man looks like, what they should be procreating with, and what masculinity is. I tell people, I'll tell ladies all the time, I don't care nothing about you having no baby with a bunch of, I don't care about you, getting fantasize, having fantasies about street dudes and going through a phase, but you ain't got to give them a kid. I've been to college, okay? I've been to college before there was online college. I've been to like real college, and I saw Becky and Anna and Stephanie the first 2 years of college getting ran through by anything that they could on the college campus and didn't wind up with a baby. But come junior year, those same thought rockets are hanging out at the law school, the medical school, the engineering school, because they for the find one of them Poindexters or quasi cool dudes that's about to cash out on their end. They're gonna latch on the nose to them for the last 2.5 years of college, and then get married to them 6 months after they get their education, and then a year after that start popping out their babies. They do the same thing, but they do it without coming out and having these, Chad and Billy's, from the polo club, babies. They don't do that. They don't do that. So I don't be, but I just have a problem with our women, the way that they view us, and what in the way that they view the brothers that are in the middle. This is what I tell people. I don't know what you fellas do for a living, but I was talking to a couple guys. I work at a hospital, and I was talking to a couple of black male nurses there, and they didn't understand that they were in the top 10% of earners in this country. They didn't understand that and what that meant, and it's not the economics; it's what it took to get there. You had to have a level of discipline. You had to have a level of character. You can't be out here terrorizing the neighborhood and get licensed to work in these institutions like that. And these brothers did not know. And I told one of the brothers, I said, let me tell you something. If you earn over $80,000 a year, you make more than the average 2-family household in this country. That puts you in the top 10% of all men. I said, but your black woman don't look at you like that. They look at you like you regular. And the guys didn't believe me. And I told them, I said, you ain't got to believe me. Look it up. You got a phone. Look it up. 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 And do you earn in that level? And they look, they go, well, I make way more. One of the guys, one of the man was a nurse practitioner. He's like, man, I make double 80 grand a year. I know you do, bruh. I know you do. He's like, but these sisters treat me like, they treat you like you just some regular old gas station attendant. And that's all, and they treat you like that. And it's not about the money. It's about what it represents and what it took you to get there. And we got to do something about that. Okay. Well, let me just see. Let me go ahead and end this.